Is the United Australia Party preferencing the Greens? Is a vote for the United Australia Party a vote for Scott Morrison? These are lots of questions that I get asked a lot, and in this video I'm going to explain how they are not true. The voter has full control. My name is Christian Young, the United Australia candidate for the seat of Dawson, and bear with us on this journey when we actually go through some of the theory, okay? So first of all, what is a preference? I had to go and actually understand what a preference is and what it is not. So a preference, when we talk about we're going to preference the Greens, we're going to preference Labor, or they're going to preference that. All that is marketing materials. Okay, so old school, I think it was maybe 2 to 5 years ago, preference deals and preferencing meant that parties would get together behind the scenes and do some things, and votes would go here and votes would go there. The legislation was changed, I think, 2 years ago. That is no longer the case. So when we say we're going to do a preference deal, what that means is on the how to vote card that you're given by the different parties, they have our recommended preference of order. What we're going to talk about today is, this is an example of a House of Representatives voting card. This is the green one that you get. And this is one that we're going to talk about today. And this is what we're talking about. When you get given this, or you go to vote, when we say put the majors last, so Labor, Liberal, Greens, then you need to find their party and almost start reverse. So go, if there was 8 things here, then number 8 is Labor, number 7 is Liberal, and number 6 is Greens, as an example. So that's what it means, but they're not going to be listed in order. You have to choose the order. You've got the information there. So when it says, well, who is the UAP actually preferencing? Again, coming back to marketing materials, currently, as of today when I'm talking about this, what is being talked about is Liberal Democrats are second preference, and I believe it's Katter Australia Party, that's really only in North Queensland, is third preference. So again, that would be on the marketing materials. It's not on the on your vote that goes behind the scenes. Now, Liberal Democrats, completely different from Liberals. Go and do your research though to go and verify that. Okay, so don't get caught out by the word Liberals. Liberal Democrats, completely different, from my perspective anyway. We can't actually finalise the preferences because it's not until the election's called, I think it's 10 days after the election's called, do people have to firm up and put all their nominations. So when people say, well, who are you going to preference in the seat of Dawson? Well, we don't know yet because we don't know everyone who's going to be on the ticket, if that makes sense. So in some seats, there might just be Labor, Liberal, Greens, UAP, and that's it. There might be four names. In other seats, there might be, for lower house again, there could be 12. So right now, in terms of who you're going to preference, we know that the majors most likely will be in there, so put them down the bottom. And their messaging is, well, put the freedom parties first. The UAP preference, again, on the marketing materials is about having, if the Liberal Democrats were there, the how to vote card would say Liberal Democrats number 2 and Katter Australia Party number 3. The bits in the middle, again, we're still yet to be finalised because the nominations haven't closed. I'll go to Clive's comment. So there's some commentary around Clive's budget reply there about we're going to preference the Greens. So if you go and actually listen to his words, what he said was, in relation to Labor and Liberal and Greens, the Greens haven't been in government, Labor and Liberal have. Okay, so when he's saying who's going to be 876, his personal comment was, well, if I most likely would have Greens as number 6, Labor number 7, and Liberal number 8. Okay, being of the top 3, the third last would be Greens, from the perspective of, well, they haven't formed government, they haven't ruled the country as much as the other 2. So that's just to clear that one up. Also, there's some commentary around if there's been people, so let's say current sitting members that have supported some of the UAP's perspective, or Craig Kelly's position on a few different votes, we might actually say, well, look, instead of putting that member last, we might say I'll put them third last, again, based on that. So there's a little bit of variability in there. Okay, so how does the preferences work? And I had to get my head around this as well. So I'll come over here to this side of the boards. So you need to get 50% plus 1 of the vote to win your seat. So here is a very simplistic, not detailed overview of, let's think a seat where you had 5 candidates. So a Labor candidate, Liberal, Greens, UAP, One Nation. Okay, everyone goes off and votes, and after the first round of count, so the primary vote, we can see here that 25% of the vote was Labor, 25% went to Liberals, 10% to Greens, 22% to UAP, and 18% to One Nation. So when you look at this list, no one has yet got 50% or over 50%. And this is where the great thing about preferences comes in. So what happens is they say, okay, well, after we don't have a clear winner after round one, whoever had the least number one, so at the top of the pack, so here was Greens, they drop out. But what happens is the Greens vote is just redistributed. So we've used this as an example to say, well, the Greens, all their 10% of the vote now went to Labor. Okay, so now the count is Labor's gone up by 10%, 35, 25, 22, 18. Same question again, well, who is now at the end of the pack? They go, oh, okay, well, One Nation is now at the end of the pack. Okay, they're fourth in line, well, they're out. Now we need to redistribute One Nation's vote to who their preference next. So then in this scenario, we've said, okay, well, a bit of that, actually we said all of it went over to UAP as an example. So now we have the next round, there's only 3 left. We've got 35 with Labor, 25 with Liberal, and 40 with UAP. Still, we don't have a clear winner. No one's above 50%, so we have to do the counts again. In this scenario, we have Liberal is third on the rung, and then Liberal's going to redistribute their votes. So that 25%, so let's say 15% went here to UAP, which takes us to 55%, and the other 10% went here to Labor and gave them 45. That's how we got to this point where the UAP has 55% of the vote after the preference rounds, therefore they're the winner. The cool thing is though, back here after the first round, we were, third in line, okay? So that's the key thing. That's where we want to get preferences right. We want to make sure all of the minor parties are up the front and the majors down the back. Because what we want after this primary vote, we don't want to give Labor and Liberal, to be up at 40% straight away after the primary vote. We want to put them down the back and give these smaller parties a chance. So that's a simplistic overview on how that process works. Pretty much you go through as many rounds as you need to on the counts until there's a clear winner. So some other things about your vote. Informal votes. So informal votes don't count. So if you're on here and you don't number all of them, that becomes an informal vote. It's out. Doesn't get counted. If you put names or graffiti or anything like that, also doesn't get counted. Our advice is certainly take a pen with you, make sure you number all the boxes. So that's a clear one. I think the informal vote was something like 8% of the vote at the 2019 election, something like that. So it was actually a really big margin, a really big count. Imagine what 8% would do over here with this thing. So we want to make sure our vote is correct, make sure it counts. So scrutineers as well. So scrutineers, they're the ones that after the polling booth closes, so at 6 p.m, everyone goes off and does this counting. We need scrutineers to come and monitor this process, okay? We need to make sure it's followed and there's no dodgy business happening. And I think the last point, and hopefully I've made it, you control who goes on there. The preferences is just the marketing materials on an advertisement essentially saying, this is the way we want you to vote. You could either follow this or you make your own call. Whatever you put on this, as long as it's a formal vote, is what will happen to drive this process left to right. So I hope I've answered a lot of questions. There's probably lots of other questions if you got them. It was a bit detailed. Hopefully this really helps. There's some really good videos on YouTube. Toffer Field, he goes through this with marbles way better than I can do here. But this was just a quick skim. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll chat to you again soon. Bye-bye.